Okay, so how did you get into the industry in photographing bands?
I was doing. Sorry, the cat. Sorry. I'll start again. I was doing doing my college course, photography for a degree, and I bumped into Brian Connolly's lead singer of the Sweet in a pub, and he said, "Oh, meet my manager." And he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm doing photography and doing photographic illustration." He goes, "I'll meet my manager." So I went to London to show him my work and just thought nothing of it. I thought he was just going to look at my work. Showed my work and he said, "Right, when do you do the next album cover?" And I was 17, so that was my first job, was the last That Sweet album cover. Then I did a couple of singles covers for them. So that sort of started me on a roll, so people sort of knew who I was from then onwards. And then a friend of mine I used to go to school was a journalist, and she said, "I need a photographer to come with me do fashion journalism for The Sounds and a new magazine called Smash Hits."
Yeah.
And that was it. So I was straight out there and got into it that way. I was always did photography. I wanted to do photography, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to do album covers, so I was quite lucky in that way because I'd done a few demo album covers, and then sort of you end up for your degree doing a real album cover, which was quite good because when they come around to look at the real, like, "Oh well, we've done 6 of those album covers. They look real." I said, "They are." It's the last Sweet album cover, so which was Level Headed. So that was my first album cover. Then I worked for Sounds for about. At the same time I was working for Sounds, I was working for the Ministry of Defence as well as a photographer, and I worked for Sounds for about 2.5 years, and then I went to Virgin Records and was the in-house photographer for Virgin Records for about 1.5 years, and then I went on just to do general commercial photography. And that's rolled into doing graphic design and where I am now, which is special effects and editing.
Yeah.
Weird way to go, but that's how I got there.
That's weird. That's the same sort of way I've ended up going, like illustrative work.
But you just sort of go, it's not. I never thought. I mean, I thought I was going to be a photographer for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's much easier sitting in front of a computer. But yeah, so that's how I got involved in that. In terms of photography, I mean, most of the Sounds work was obviously live bands, not really posed or anything else. But when I went to Virgin Records, I did work for BBC as well. I did 2 series of Sight and Sound in Concert. I did all the still work for that for the Radio Times. But that again, it's mainly live work. But when I got into Virgin Records, it was more posed. So you actually went out like I did Power About to go, which was a massive band in the 80s. One of the Virgin really pushing was a big band. Then you get to do like proper stuff, find a location, set up a location, drag the band out there, get them to sit still for 5 minutes to take a picture. So that was more of that was less live work and more set work.
Yeah. Which one did you prefer?
The live work's more fun because apart from that, I love live music anyway. It's more fun because you're sitting there with the camera, you're right down the front, you've got to catch the shot as it happens because that's the only time that shot's ever going to happen. I mean, when you're posing for a band, the shots, you're posing the band, so because again, when I did all this, it wasn't digital, it was film, so you can't see what you've done, you have to remember in your head what you've taken. So posing is a bit easier because you can, you set the shot up, you're seeing it in the lens. If you're shooting on 35mm or shooting 127 or 2.25 or even 5.4, you know what that shot's going to be. Whereas when you're live, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a lot of times as well with live work. I think in the 2 years I worked for Sounds Smash Hits, I went through about 6 cameras because you get kicked out your hand and smashed. So that was always like recovering Pentax MVs with the lens pushed off the front, but making sure the film was right inside. So that's more exciting.
Yeah. If you were selling photographs, who preferred what? So when you were using it for advertisements or selling to magazines, what did they prefer?
Because when generally working for Sounds, you'd be given an assignment. So if I was working with Philippa Pippa, we'd be given, we'd say, right, tonight you've got to go and photograph this band. So you knew what you were doing. You weren't doing it off your own back. It was, you were given a band to go and shoot. And generally with Sounds, on interviews, we did do the odd interview as well. So, I mean, I did things like interviews with Nick Turner, which was quite an interesting one. He was a guy at Hawkwind. He lived above his dad's butcher's shop. Like this famous bloody keyboard and saxophonist lives above his dad's butcher shop in the flat. really weird, off his face totally. So, but like interviews of that, I did Patrick Moratz out of Patrick Moratz out of Roxy Music. He did his first solo album. And I did some, you know, so you did, it wasn't just all live work, it was interview work as well. But again, that's sort of do the interview and then run around and take a load of pictures before they get bored and go all rock starry on you. I don't want to do this anymore. So you did that, you did interview Kate Bush. So yeah, that was quite fun as well. But the live work, I think, was, but it was an assignment because I was working with a journalist. The most of the work I did was an assignment, so you weren't just going off the top of your head to do that. You were actually doing an assignment. And with Philippa, she went off to become PA for Alan Parker for a while, so I got to do a lot of stills for Pink Boys The Wall. So we worked on set at Palmer Studios in Shepperton, taking pictures of, hence you saw the illustration you got with Bob Geldof, but that's from a still picture I took.
Yeah.
That was it really. But so anything created is quite fun, isn't it? I mean, I think the live work, say, for me is more fun because you're just running. It's you don't know what's going to happen. Don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you could do it and get absolute crap pictures, and you know you think, oh, that's why. But other times you can go and just get that one classic. I mean, the one with Sam, unfortunately the final print, but the Gary Moore one. You know, we went to see a band that he was managing. He said to me, do you want to come out for a curry afterwards? So, it's Gary Moore's band, I'm going to go out for a curry, Gary Moore. And they just released Thin Lizzy's Black Rose, and he says, you want a picture? Grabs hold of the rose out of the Indian restaurant with the rose, grabs out one like that. So that's the picture. So I took about 4 of those. That was on the cover of Sounds in it was the month that Black Rose came out. Yeah. Nobody else had that picture. So that was good. You know, because it's like, I could take a picture of Gary Moore with the rose. So, yeah.
Is there anything about the developing process that you do differently, or?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I used to use, my main developer was, I generally use HP4 film 400, and I'd always up it to 1600, so knock it up about 2 stops, which gives you that nice grainy look and makes it quite high contrast as well. Then I'd develop it in Pro Micro. I do it Pro Micro, I'd probably develop it at about 85, but not too high because you don't want to reticulate the film, because you get reticulation when all the gel goes funny. But knock it as high as possible, and that would push out the blacks in it.
Yeah.
And if I really wanted to push the contrast, I'd put it on a L10 line film. So I'd process a neg onto another neg onto line film, which really just bleaches the crap out of it. And then put it on high contrast paper. Not that I like contrast. But yeah, so that would be, but it works great because when the problem is I mean, not now because it's digital now and the film's much more sensitive, but when I was taking pictures like those early ones in the 80s, you're shooting on HP4, it would be the lights wouldn't be that bright because they're not LEDs, they were just standard lights, so everything would be very low contrast and washed out, so you try everything possible to push some contrast and detail back into it, because the first shoot I didn't up-res the film, for example, and you got the neg out, I was like, I think there's something on it, it's just like clear, you know, it's so dark, and you're mainly shooting at 30th at f1.9, so you're shooting really slow, which always made it quite interesting as well, because you had to catch somebody just before they went into their next, because there's always a point where someone stops before they fall into their next manic leap around, so it was always trying to catch that point before they went all blurry again, because 30th of a second is like really slow, so if they move, it's slow.
Do you have any tips for lighting?
As much as possible. Well, it depends. I mean, if you're lighting subjects, I go for the standard. I'll use, which I still do, which I use now if I'm doing, interviews with bands and stuff. Is I'll use keynotes front for soft front lighting, and usually do a backlighting rim, and possibly fire another light onto the background behind that as well, so you get a nice soft halo. I always liked the 40s photographs when they used to use like a really small depth of field, and then backlight and then side light, because it's that we used to do the old rock star film stars in the 40s. I just love that sort of photography because it's very detailed. I quite like that sort of lighting. That would be that's my tips. Is always stick a backlight on from behind that camera shot. Then throw a soft light on the thing, and then just use keynotes at the front, because there's nothing worse than nose shadows, which I've seen so many people take portraits and they've got a bloody great nose shadow across here. Like, what's wrong with that? It just looks wrong.